So here we are with a so-called tax reform bill. A big deal for the Republicans. You know, I was all set to say, never has so much political capital been expended by so many on something so small. And I am gonna say that in many respects later on in this video with respect to the changes to general taxation in this tax reform bill. But that would be a bit unfair if that is all I said. Because I am enjoying, if I can say that, the bit of this bill that is important, which really doesn't directly have anything to do with general taxation at all. It's the repeal of the individual mandate and in the Affordable Care Act, otherwise known as Obamacare, that forcing American people to buy something, and if they don't, they get fined. And that fine, we were told, if you can remember, as the Obamacare debates were going on, was not a tax. It was not a tax. And then when Obamacare went to the Supreme Court allowed it to pass, allowed that individual mandate to pass, because they said it was a tax. And so today, taking the Supreme Court, I guess, at its word, the Republicans have repealed that tax. I was one of the many who was disadvantaged by the Affordable Care Act. My premiums started to shoot up, and they've always gone up quite a bit, but after the ACA, they shot up. And I have many friends, too, who have been financially harmed by the Affordable Care Act, perhaps indirectly through the fact that their employers wouldn't let them work as many hours as before because of the the benefits that would have to be given to them if they were allowed to work long hours under the ACA. So anyway, I'm pleased about this, not just because of my pocketbook, but because I wrote at the time that I think it wasn't an honest debate. If we're gonna have it was kind of a socialism by the back door, right? It was an authoritarian imposition of an idea that made people like me forced welfare recipients. And what I mean by that is that I make a choice in the way I live my life to not take from the welfare pot if I can. Unfortunately, I have been able to live by that, to not take from that welfare pot directly. But when a law is passed that increases the price of something that you could afford on the free market, such that the price becomes artificially inflated, and the only way you can pay something close to the free market cost of that service, in this case health insurance, is to take the subsidy, then it kind of almost forces people like me to make very difficult decisions on principle. And if we take let's say, a more purist approach to our principles, we are left individually basically paying for a law. We're paying extra money because of a law. We're not paying for the actual healthcare, because the healthcare, the price is artificially inflated. So, the Affordable Care Act, individual mandate, has been gotten rid of like the tax that the Supreme Court tells us it is. And I have to say, good riddance. That isn't to say there weren't good intentions by those, of course, on the part of those backing the Affordable Care Act, but it was rammed through on a party line vote, just like, ironically, this tax reform bill. And so here we are. Hoisted by one's own petard is the phrase that's been going around my head today. So we will see what comes of that. It's interesting that I haven't verified many of these claims, but a lot of companies are right now posting that they are going to be giving bonuses to their employees on the back of this tax bill. Now, obviously, that is all largely because of, I imagine, the corporate tax rate reduction that's in this bill. So let's talk about what this bill should be about, which is the general system of taxation, actual tax reform. I'm completely underwhelmed. I still think this is moving the deck chairs on the Titanic. Why? Because, well, the tax code was 74,000 pages before this bill. I'm sure it'll be pretty much around that after this bill. What actually costs people isn't the fact that the rate is, 25% instead of 22%, or 39.6% instead of 36%, or whatever it is. It's so marginal, those headline aspects of the tax rate. The impact's so marginal that it just doesn't scratch where it itches for me. What matters is the absurd costs of compliance, the fear of the IRS that many Americans have, even though they've done nothing wrong, because of the power that the IRS wields, allied to the complexity of what they're trying to enforce, such that the most honest, well-intentioned Americans seriously can't be expected to get everything right when it comes to tax time. There are deep ethical problems with the tax system that could and should be repealed by any serious attempt at tax reform. So, for example, America has only one other alongside only one other country in the world. I want to say it's Eritrea. I might be wrong about that. There's only two nations in the world that impose worldwide taxation, which means that if I earn money abroad, I pay tax not only abroad but in America if the United States decides that it wants a chunk of money that had nothing to do with America in its acquisition, this worldwide taxation. Allied to that, the horrendous violation of the Fourth Amendment, which is the requirement of Americans who have paid their taxes to divulge to the American government all of their foreign assets if they exceed over $10,000 in value, all of their foreign accounts. Absolutely outrageous. Why should an American have to, well, on the one hand, spend loads of money filing massively complex tax returns that involve his foreign affairs, and why should he have to tell the American government where his foreign money is, as long as it was declared when it was earned, and the person in question is not in violation of any tax law? It's an absolute outrage. So, and what about the fact that, okay, we change a few tax bands, so what? We still have the payroll tax, an outrageous tax, penalization of employment, and it's regressive. And folks who are trying to pursue their own American dream, running their own businesses, have to pay both the employers and employees part of it. That's 15%. That's a pretty much 15% flat tax on all small businessmen before they even pay the income tax. I would much rather something sensible be done with the payroll tax for self-employed folks than some minor change on the tax rate. So anyway, here we are. I think it's a lot to do about very little. Yes, I get the point about the big drop in corporate taxes, but and I get it. But the Bill of Rights actually applies to citizens, to individuals. Individuals are the moral entities that have individual rights. Corporations do not have inherent rights. To set up a corporation is something one does to gain privileges that are actually negotiated with the state. I'm not saying that's right or wrong. I'm just saying the state dictates what a corporation is. And the reason a small businessman might set up a corporation is that there may be certain tax advantages or other advantages to doing so. But they are not individual rights. They're not natural rights that are being acquired when one sets up a corporation, right? But as an individual, I have a natural right. I have a natural right to my privacy. And, when we're talking about payroll taxes, when we're talking about income taxes, when we're talking about property taxes, we are talking about we can argue about it, but we are talking about impinging on natural rights in a way that corporation tax, I don't think, does. Now, I'm not advocating for high corporation tax, but if you're gonna have a big tax reform, to leave in place the structure, the fundamental philosophy of the tax code exactly as it is, penalizing employment, and as I say, burdening one's natural rights to act freely in pursuit of one's own happiness. I think it's a damn shame. Missed opportunity. Payroll tax, property tax, income tax. I don't know. I would have started with them, and probably in that order. Of course, doing something about the income tax is great, but as I say, there's more benefit to working and middle-class Americans, certainly those who run small businesses and therefore do a lot of their own taxes and have to pay accountants and do all this kind of thing. There would be more financial benefit to them in simplifying the tax code than in making compliance easier, in other words, than in moving a few rates. And just a missed opportunity. But anyway, there it is. The healthcare thing is interesting. The tax reform thing, the general taxation, disappointing. We'll see what happens next. All right, everyone. Thanks a lot. Take care. Bye.